по поводу Карлсона, конечно, всех беспокоит, что он высказался по поводу Украины.
As for Carlson, of course, everyone is concerned that he spoke out about Ukraine, and I think that Carlson is insufficiently informed and to some extent has some kind of internal disease about Ukraine.
Болезнь по поводу Украины.
I believe that something is twisted in him, and I do not know who gives him the information. I don't agree with her in principle. In principle, I disagree, because a lot of lies were told there from what he said. It is wrong and already.
Я не согласен с тем, что вы по поводу Украины.
And I do not agree with the fact that about Ukraine. Everything about what I said about everything else, I completely agree with everyone, except Ukraine. That is, as far as the domestic agenda of the United States is concerned, there is no equal to Tucker. And so Cause will be one of the most influential people who will determine the agenda of political discourse, and the election campaign of the 24th year.
Поэтому Маск ставит на него.
Therefore, Musk is betting on him, and many are betting on Musk.
Чтобы понять вообще, что происходит,
In order to understand what is going on at all, Tucker Carlson himself has become such a popular media person that today one Tucker Carlson is closing all media channels.
все, то есть CNN,
That's it. That is, CNN, CBC, there's the BBC and everything else. Everything they all say is the same, and Carlson can kill with one issue and believe him more than they do now. In place of Ukraine
я не
today,
знаю, что они там,
I do not know what they are there, from what Zelensky said something there.
на месте Зеленского ему стоило бы позвонить или связаться как-то с Карлсоном.
In Zelensky's place, he should have called or contacted Carlson somehow and tried to explain the situation in one form or another in order to run over him. Because of what to do, therefore that influence on Carlson's political influence on the conservative.
Консервативную публику в Соединенных Штатах.
The conservative public in the United States is much larger, to a greater extent than the entire media space, all the forces of Ukraine in relation to all Western politics in all countries. Therefore, Carlson alone weighs everything today, everything, all the forces need to be thrown at explaining the situation to him.
Во-первых, признать, в каких вещах он был прав.
First, to admit what things he was right about, to start with this. And secondly, to explain that the situation is that there is no other way to survive in a warring country than to wriggle between Republicans and Democrats. But even worse, what Ukraine does not need to do is to interfere in the internal discourse of the political situation in the United States. That is, not to comment on things that will affect the fact that Ukraine is leaning towards the Dem Party or Ukraine is leaning towards the Republican Party. It is necessary to observe the most remote state in relation to domestic politics. Because it is unclear who is under the carpet there, which bulldog will win, and Ukraine may be affected by this. Therefore, the politically poorly verified policy of Ukraine, it has repeatedly proved that the foreign policy of the Ukrainian, Korean discourse is wrong to the point of insanity, as well as and. Well, we know, we may talk later about the United States State Department, which has turned into some kind of iceberg, impenetrable by bureaucracy in some inveterate political discourse even in the last century, which got stuck in the last century. We can also say about the Russian Foreign Ministry, we can also say about the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, we can also say even about the British Foreign Ministry. I'm not talking about Israeli and so on. Therefore, in this sense, something needs to change.
Нужно что-то менять, поэтому если...
Therefore, if Zelensky managed to win beautifully, like an election, becoming the president of Ukraine, not by approaching the issue permanently, but by his election situation, yes, when he is a simple person, a simple actor there from the quarter of 95 was able to become president.
Человек, простой актер там с квартала 95 смог стать президентом. Точно так же такие способности проявить для того, чтобы Такер Карлсон, по крайней мере...
In the same way, such abilities should be shown in order for Carlson to at least see the truth from his side, or really show them how much money they really have. Do not hesitate to show how much money they really came to the Democratic parties, how much was declared and everything else. Don't be shy about it. Tell it like it is and that's it. Let him figure it out further. After all, the truth must eventually, as they say, the truth must be. She will always win. Therefore, if you try to play on the side of the Democratic Party, this is a losing option. And Stacker Carlson is too big a figure to be neglected or vice versa. Because today the voice of Tucker, I think is stronger than even the entire State Department. Why not declare?
Чего бы не заявляли. Вот, еще есть очень интересная информация по поводу того...
Here is also some very interesting information about the fact that a bunch of Carl Tucker, Carlson and Musk, it gives a very interesting conglomerate. We talked about Musk about his democracy, that a free press has become more or less, and so on. There is some material that I would recommend reading now, yes, about Elon Musk. Why? Because it develops some history.
Итак, многие справа, то есть консерваторы, провозгласили покупку Илона Маском Твиттера крупной победой в культурной войне.
So, many on the right, that is, conservatives, proclaimed the purchase of Elon Musk Twitter as a major victory in the culture war, but this celebration seems premature, because on June 1st, the CEO of Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, wrote that Twitter had broken a deal with a conservative multimedia publication to show his extremely popular documentary, What is a Woman, on the social network site. After initially agreeing to show the film, Boring says he was told that Twitter would no longer show us any support, was providing no support there and would actually restrict the distribution of the film and call it hateful behavior due to incorrect gender. That is, the news was unexpected, because after the masses bought Twitter, the site at least cancelled the previous policy of punishing the user for the so-called incorrect definition of gender in order to confirm Musk's commitment to freedom of speech. After being called out on his own website about the episode, Musk said he reversed his staff's decision and called the incident a mistake by many people on Twitter. However, on the same evening, when Daily Vibe published in documentary finance on his Twitter account, a label was attached to him, stating that this tweet could violate Twitter's rules prohibiting hate speech and users were not allowed to share the film. This is the only way to achieve freedom of speech on Twitter. It's the only way. If the only way to achieve freedom of speech on Twitter is to appeal to the easily distracted owner of the site and even he still cannot challenge the decision of his employees, the obvious question arises, who really runs Twitter?
Кто на самом деле управляет Твиттером?
People who care about freedom of speech didn't like the answer. Musk's recent selection of vocalist Linda Carina as CEO raises all sorts of concerns. You remember this lady, yes, she worked at the World Economic Forum, but Madam was responsible for the content there. The widely publicized Twitter drought. There must be there must be a lot of pressure on Musk, who probably overpaid for the social network platform, who is struggling to make a profit. And in this light, the choice of the Mask of Yakorin makes sense from a financial point of view. In the past, she headed the hotel department of global advertising in partnership at NBC Universal, where she led a team of 2,000 people who brought in profits of more than $100 billion from advertising sales. Managing the company's digital portfolio in Carina seems really competent, and not some kind of hired employee.
По сферам компании Карина кажется действительно компетентным, а не каким-то посредственным наемным работником. Проблема в том, что Карина, похоже...
The problem is that Carina, was completely absorbed by the Wakismo virus. Yes, I was completely absorbed by the mind-awakening virus.
Вирусом пробуждения разума. После того, как ее выбрал Маск...
After she was chosen by Musk, videos from her recent past surfaced and in one of them she spoke for Penn State, with sickening enthusiasm expounded the party line regarding COVID, telling students, among other things, that they need to put on a mask or get ready.
Что нужно надеть маску или собраться. Ее выступления ясно дают понять, что она член стада.
Her performances make it clear that she is a member of the herd, an instrument of the regime that is unlikely to resisting its worst impulses, that is, leakism.
То, что ее сотрудничество с Белым домом Байдена.
That is, the fact that she is cooperating with the Biden White House in creating his unprecedented obsessive vaccination campaign against the virus undoubtedly proves. In another video, I'm Carina praising Larry Fink from BlackRock. The two driving forces behind the destructive environmental, social and corporate governance movement see for calling on CEOs across the country to fill the gap in society that once was.
Заполнить пробел в обществе, который когда-то был. И предполагалось, что правительство будет обеспечивать людей.
And it was assumed that the government would provide for people. That is, and we, corporations, are responsible for a beneficial impact on culture, and the bottom line is that when you as a company have such priorities and values, it is very good for business. Her enthusiasm for it should not be surprising. After all, she is the executor or chairman of the World Economic Forum, the far-left clique of globalist technocrats Klaus Schwab, the initiator of the Great Reset. And if this does not cause alarm, then you are inattentive. Another big concern is the concept of I am Karina about the good, so-called in another video.
Она рекламирует обязательства NBC Universal в размере $100 миллионов в борьбе за социальную справедливость и равенство.
She touts the NBC Universe's commitment of $100 million in the fight for social justice and equality. And after the Black Lives Matter riots of the 20th year, she declared it. This commitment included $75 million in cash for radical organizations such as the Equal Justice Initiative, the National Urban League, the Action for Justice Foundation, Communities National Action, L. Sharpton's National Action Network, and NAACP, the official partner of BLV.
Еще все очень шатко.
That's the story. Therefore, today everything is still very shaky here. On the one hand money, on the other hand politics. And today we can come to a very interesting question. So in the spirit of all this, Tucker Carlson is just like a downhole miner in a mine who extracts money for, so to speak, for Musk.
Для Маска.